Hey everyone, I'm Joe and today I'm doing my July wrap-up part 1. Due to the amount I'm now reading each month, my monthly wrap-up videos have got far too long and frankly they're not fun to make anymore particularly, and I suspect they're probably not as fun to watch because 15 to 17 minutes long videos, which the previous 2 or 3 have been, frankly it's too long I think for any video in my opinion. So I'm now doing them in 2 parts. I'm doing a mid-month and an end-of-month one, and I'm just going to call them simply part 1 and part 2, and this is the first ever one. So in total I read 7 books across a nice variety of genres, and the first of these books is EmbassyTown by China Mieville. This book is quite difficult to describe, even the genre of. It's a science fiction, it's also fantasy, and it's also what you'd class as New Weird. And indeed, Mieville is classed as part of the New Weird movement. I'm going to do a separate review of this book in the next week or 2, so I'm not going to talk about it too much now. But suffice to say, it is about a human colony on an alien world. The aliens are nicknamed the Host. The plot is all about linguistics and language. Mieville has a particular glee talking about and investigating language in all his books. He plays with words and language, but in this the focus is directly on language itself and its evolution and how we communicate with others. And I really enjoyed this book, as I've enjoyed the previous 5 or 6 Mievilles I've read. I wouldn't suggest this book as your first Mieville if you haven't read him before. However, I'd choose something a little bit simpler, because this would be difficult to say the least, frankly. The second book that I read was The Third Option by Vince Flynn. This is the 4th book in the Mitch Rapp series. The Mitch Rapp series is 14 books long in total, so I've got a fair way to go. This is a spy espionage series. There's lots of action and lots of politics in them. The main character is unsurprisingly called Mitch Rapp. He's a counter-terrorism expert, and this book, frankly, is not as good as the previous 3. Obviously, with long-running series, you have ups and downs constantly throughout them. This is a bit of a down compared to the previous 3, which were very exceptionally strong. It was still good, just nothing special, and compared to the last book in particular, it was just sort of so-so. But you know, if you like the series and like the character of Mitch Rapp, then frankly, obviously you will want to read this book. And indeed I will be continuing with the overall series. The third book that I read was The End of the World Running Club by Adrian J. Walker. This is a post-apocalyptic dystopian novel. The main character is a fairly normal family guy. He's not happy by the fact he's married or has got children. He's not a horrible guy, he's just not bothered, frankly. He's fairly lazy, he drinks too much, and there is a series of meteor strikes across the entire of the European continent. And this is obviously a complete disaster, hence the post-apocalyptic nature of the book. And to cut a long story short, his wife and his 2 children end up on the south coast of England in Cornwall, and he is in Edinburgh where they live. And his only plan to get back to them is to run the whole way from north to south through the UK. And obviously he is not a runner by nature. He's actually very lazy, as is pointed out repeatedly in the book. And he with a group of other companions whom he meets at the start and a few of them he meets during the book, are on this journey from north to south in the UK. I didn't really know what to expect with this book, but it actually has a surprising amount of emotion and a surprising amount of feeling in the book, considering the main character is extremely unlikable. He really is, quite badly, from the very start of the book to the very end. You're kind of surprised by the fact that you still want him to do okay in the book, despite he really is unpleasant, frankly. Overall, I would recommend this book because it's a really good book. It is the author's second book. The first was a self-released ebook, I believe, so this is his first physical released book. and I'm actually quite impressed by it, and I'll definitely keep my eye out for further books by Adrian J. Walker in the future. Also, if you want me to do a separate review on this, then let me know. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a separate review, but if people want me to, then I will. The fourth book that I read was High Rise by J G Ballard. This is a science fiction dystopian. It is a really interesting book because it's set all around just a single very large building, obviously the high rise of the title. This building has been designed to be a sort of a perfect sort of place for people to live. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I am doing a separate review of this as well in the next few weeks, but it's a very interesting exploration of society and the way society works and fails to work, and the way that where we live can both help us and greatly hinder us. And it's extremely thoughtfully written and extremely well written, and I really enjoyed this book. It's not for everyone, however, because the violence in parts of this book are very nasty and very brutal, and there's also some fairly nasty things to do with animals as well, which starts the warning if you are very concerned about animals and don't like to read about them being mistreated, let's say. It's not just for the hell of it, however, even the animals aren't. It's there to make a very specific point, and this book makes it extremely well. But again, I'm going to do a review, so that's it for now. The fifth book that I read was Time is the Fire, the best of Connie Willis by, unsurprisingly, Connie Willis. I buddy read this with Rachel, whose channel is Calla, which I'll link in the description below, of course. This is a short story collection. There are 10 short stories in it. I'm not going to talk about them too much now because me and Rachel will be talking about this book in the live show that we do each month, which will be in 2 or 3 weeks' time, in the first weekend of August. But suffice to say, some of the short stories were really, really good. Some of them were merely mediocre, but then again, with a short story collection, that's kind of fairly normal, you know, but always some that stand out and some that really don't, that are fairly average. I do like Connie Willis' sense of humour in the books, and her forewords for each of the 10 stories I really did like, and I know Rachel liked as well. And I would definitely read more Willis, because this was my first ever Connie Willis, and it won't be my last. The sixth and penultimate book that I read was The Difference Engine by William Gibson and Bruce Sterling. This is a steampunk book, obviously in the Masterwork series, of which, if you didn't know, I'm a really big fan of the Masterwork series. I've got a lot of them now. I'm also a big fan of Gibson, and at this point I've read a large portion of Gibson's catalogue. I really did enjoy this. This is a very early steampunk novel. At the start of it, in the introduction, there is a foreword, and that is extremely interesting because it actually explains where the term steampunk came from, which I did not know. But it's really, really interesting. I'm not going to repeat where this term steampunk comes from, because obviously it will spoil the surprise of this, but I personally think it's well worth reading, and it's a really nice book. It's Victorian era steampunk, and it's basically to do with an invention of a sort of a form of a basically computer, an early computer, and Babbage, and the control of information on this sort of early computer and kind of an internet system they have. And overall, it's curious and it's not easy to read in places, but overall though, it is a good book, and I'm really glad I read it because it's important to the steampunk subgenre as well, and to Gibson's overall writing. The seventh and final book that I read happens to also be the largest book I read in the last 2 weeks, and that is Wolves of the Calla by Stephen King. This is a big book. It's like 800-ish pages, I can't remember now. This is book 5 in the Dark Tower series. The Dark Tower series is 7 books long. It is what is classed as Stephen King's magnus opus, or his sort of greatest work. It is an epic fantasy series set in the world of Midworld, about a gunslinger called Roland, and along with a few companions of his, is on this big roaming adventure across Midworld and several other worlds, including our own. It's very peculiar and very weird, but obviously I'm on the 5th book, so I'm obviously enjoying it. This one took me a long time to read. This has actually took me just over the last 2 weeks to read. The previous 4 I read in 2 days per book. This took me 8 times that to read for some reason. Don't know why, but I just found it harder to read in some way. I did enjoy it, it's just harder to read, which is really puzzling because I don't know the reason why. And I'm not going to say too much more because I'm going to do a video about the whole series once I've read book 6 and 7, which should be fairly soon. Book 6 will probably be next week or the week after. Book 7 will probably end up in August, and then I'll do the big video about the whole Dark Tower series. So with that said, that's it for this video. If you've read any of these or would like to read any of them, then please leave me a comment and we can have a discussion as always. All my social media links can be found in the description box below, along with links to anything else like Rachel's channel and written reviews to any of these. And that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.